Good morning and welcome to this 5th video following my efforts to build my 8th longbow, in this case a Hazel self-bow. And this is the stave, and I'm now ready to start the process of reducing the mass of this stave down into the shape of a longbow. So I'm getting readings that average about 10% along the length of this stave. But I have been reminded by an experienced bowyer, thank you Michael, that these things can be misleading. That is because they're not regularly calibrated, and also the prongs only go a short distance into the wood, so you're measuring the moisture at the surface, not the depth. But using one of these allied with taking the weight of the stave regularly is a great guide to its loss of moisture. Here's the stats for this stave. Okay, so I'm happy now to start work on this stave, reducing it down, following some guidelines which I'll put on next until I get close to a bow shape. My first job is to now remark the string line down the middle of the bow. Then I should put some guidelines along the side and down the belly to approximate to the shape and size that I want. And then I'll work towards these lines using a spokeshave and a rasp and eventually sandpaper. So let's have a look at the dimensions that I'm going to aim for as I work my way down this Hazel stave. These are the dimensions of my current Hazel longbow, which draws about 80 pounds. This is the top view and this is the side view. Its depth at the handle is 32 millimeters, its width at the handle is 40 millimeters. Its width at the tip is 17 millimeters and its depth at the tip is 16 millimeters. This of course is just showing one limb of the bow. Of course I don't want to make the same bow as I made last time, I want it to be better, but I will use these dimensions with a few millimeters added to put down the guidelines on this stave for me to work towards. I will stay outside the guidelines as I remove wood, but they're there as a good guide for my eye as I work along this stave. Okay, before I go any further, let's talk about fear. Yes, this stage for me can be the most daunting, and I think for novice bowyers it's just the same. We worry that our only piece of wood will get ruined, and sometimes what that does, it stops us doing anything at all. We're paralysed by fear. I've learned in the few bows that I've made that the best thing to do is just get on with it. It's hard, you fear that you might ruin the only piece of wood you've got, but that's how I've learned, and that's how I think a beginner should start out. Don't overthink it, just have a go. Okay, let's put this centre line down and get started. Of course, my aim when I'm doing this is to make sure that the tips line up with the handle. Okay, that's the centre line mark now. Using this line, I'm now going to map out the other guidelines and draw them on the belly of this stave. For clarity on this video, I'm using a heavy black marker to show how I've laid out the guidelines. So now the moment of truth. I can't avoid it any longer. I've got to start removing wood down to those guidelines. Initially I shall use a spokeshave. also use this, a small block plane, as I work down the belly of this bow. So that's the back and the sides of this Hazel Longbow squared off. It's now roughed out a little bit further towards the final dimensions, and it's beginning to resemble a bow. I'm sure a skilled and experienced bowyer would soon work this stave down to bow dimensions, but when it comes to bow making, I have neither of those qualities, so for me, the only way to go is slow. Periodically, I put the string back on the bow to check that the tips still line up with the handle. I find it so easy to go off course at this stage. I also switch between working on the sides of the bow and the belly as I gradually refine down this stave towards a longbow. There are very few knots in this stave, but this one here, close to the handle, is beginning to tear when I put a spokeshave or a plane over it. So I've ringed that with pencil to leave it alone until I start work with a rasp. Any places along the bow stave where I'm getting a little bit too close to the finished dimensions, I write leave on the wood so I don't take any further wood off from that area. I'm getting much closer now to the width dimensions. That's the distance across the back and across the belly of this bow. Now I want to start working on the side profile, which is the thickness or the depth of the bow. I've been removing wood from the sides and the belly of this bow using a plane and a spokeshave. They're great up to this point, but they do tend to make things very flat. This is a great danger from now on. And this is why, even though this stave seems nice and straight, the back has got all sorts of dents and bumps and hollows all along its length. You can see here quite clearly the snaky back of this stave. And look at this, on the tip, quite a curve there. Now, if I was to use a spokeshave and a plane, I might end up following this line here. And then what would happen is the bow would be too thin just there and way too thick here. So I have to follow the contour of this bow's back, and to do that I feel much safer using a rasp. So here's my progress so far. Here's the new bow, ready now for its final dimensions and the last piece of work necessary before it goes on the tiller. And here's last year's Hazel bow side by side for comparison. Well, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Next time I'll continue work on this bow, getting it ready for the tillering tree. I'll see you then.